Coming to you from the historic Hart Building in Marysville, California, in Studio 93, In the Tank with Fish, with your host, Bob Fischetti.
Well, welcome to a special episode of In the Tank with Minnow and my special guest, Fish. My, how the tables have turned.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about this.
Did you wear deodorant today?
Yeah, I did, but I am sweating.
Let me just take these gloves off and we'll just get started over here. This is going to be fun because you always are the interviewer.
Yeah.
Right? Is that it? Not the interviewee?
And I was trying to think, have I ever been interviewed? And I can't remember. That could be age. But
well, then we'll start where you always start.
Okay.
Tell us about Little Fish.
Oh. Well.
We all know where you grew up. Let's start there anyways.
Yeah. I think generally speaking, as a kid, what I remember more than anything is playing baseball.
Yeah.
Sun up, sundown. I mean, we just, loved it. There was very little TV that we watched, Mickey Mouse Club, whatever was on. And, but really, we loved being outdoors. There was 7 in the family. There's 4 boys and 3 girls. And really us 3 younger boys, man, we just loved playing baseball. The guy next door worked for Rawlings. And so we had a real backstop, a real catcher's mitt, first baseman's
mitt. You
guys
guys were set.
Oh, we were set. And it was back east. This was in St. Louis. And they didn't, like in California, everybody's yard has got fences, right? Yeah. Well, back there, the only fences you had was kind of like hog wire if you had a dog.
Oh.
And, they weren't that high. And so on one side, the left field had a fence. And that was home run territory.
I was going to say, was that you hit that and you were home run?
Yeah. Then you had to get a new baseball because they had a big dog.
Oh, yeah.
And so it wasn't that bad. But yeah. And then when it got dark, you played flashlight tag.
Did you? Your mom didn't make you come in when it got dark?
No. No. We pretty much had the run of the neighborhood. And so, yeah, I mean, we knew school nights, you had to get in. We just kind of knew, right? So we did it.
Yeah.
But then, I did the typical kid stuff, played Corey League, they called it, Little League Baseball, and was in Boy Scouts, right?
Oh, my gosh. Were you a troublemaker as a kid?
No, certainly not.
Okay, that's a yes. We'll note that in the file. That is an absolute yes.
I don't know about being a troublemaker, but...
Were you mischievous? Were you like Oliver? Just a little mischievous?
Well, so because we moved into... they had track homes. We moved into subdivision. So across from us was a dairy farm, Klein Sorge's farm, and it had a pond and, the whole thing. And so... a couple of the kids, the Howard boys that hung around with us, their dad worked for Nestle's. So Nestle's had a promotion, which it was like a little plastic sailboat, right? That was just full of candy bars. So he had it in his garage, and I guess he was supposed to set it up somewhere. We dumped that puppy out.
Oh, yeah.
Took that boat over to the pond. We were going to sail in Sorge's pond. That thing sunk in about 2 seconds.
I bet.
And that farmer, man, he just hated us. I mean, we actually, my older brother and Harold Cuddy, he shot them with buckshot with the salt.
Yeah.
With the salt. Yeah, that's very painful, right?
Yeah.
But man, we saw him coming. And he'd say, look, you kids, you stir up the pond and then the cows won't drink out of it. Yeah. That was the deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he was telling the truth or not.
He just wanted to do off his property.
Yeah. And then he had a wooded area behind there. And so one time we were walking through there and I'm just telling you where I was a troublemaker. And I was taking matches and you stick them on the back of the book and you pop them with your hand and they my brother said, you need to stop doing that. And I said, oh man, they go out before they hit the ground, Zell. And we're 100 yards or so and all of a sudden, man, and my brother goes, you set the woods on fire.
Oh my goodness.
So man, we ran. we got around behind our house. Everybody was watching, right?
Yeah.
We got around behind them and said, "What's going on?" And they were like,
We've been here the whole time.
The lights are on fire. Who do that? Just like, yeah. There was a couple incidents like that, but
we'll just call you curious and a little mischievous. Where are you in birth order?
I'm the second to the youngest out of 7. I have a little brother, and he's the only one left alive. Unfortunately, all my relatives have passed.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that happens as you get older. Pretty soon you're like, just me and Johnny.
Just me. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be just me, right? But and we were a very close family as kids. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 12, and so it really kind of the family separated. We were all over the place, and my mom couldn't contain us.
Yeah,
she just couldn't. It was just too much on her, and us boys were like, we really deserved a beating.
Well, I can imagine though that's a pretty crucial age to have a loss that big, and to try as a mom to have 7 kids and now try and process grief and also raise children was probably a lot for anybody.
She didn't even know how to write a check. My dad took care of everything, so it was very difficult on her. And it's like when your whole world turns upside down like that. Yeah, years later, I was in the military, and it was very expensive because it wasn't like cell phones to call home. But I just called her and apologized for what a grief I was to her.
Yeah.
I didn't care how much it cost, man. She's my mom, right?
Yeah.
But I left home at 15. And
Wow.
she asked me what I wanted, and I said a plane ticket.
Yeah.
So I got a
Where'd
bus
you go?
ticket. I went to St. Louis. She had moved us to Texas, and I'm not a Texas boy.
So she moved to Texas after your dad passed?
Yeah, a little while later.
Yeah. Did she have family in Texas, or what was the move?
No, my mom was just lost. And so she's traveling around. And really, all I knew was I really felt like I needed to graduate high school.
Yeah.
It was like my focus.
Yeah.
So, like they have it here. I think it's not called ROP, but it's something like that. It was called COE, Cooperative Occupational Education. So you get a job. So I went to work actually with the union with a grocery store. So I had a car and was able to pay insurance. And, my friends were like, hey, got any money? And it's like, dude, I'm working, right?
Yeah.
But so I just worked my way through high school. I just knew.
Yeah.
I thought it was important, right? It turns out it was. But, at the time, I was just like, I needed something in front of me, a goal, I think.
Some kind of compass.
And that was it. I would love to tell you I did really well in high school.
You did well enough.
I think my highest grade was a C. I passed, right? But yeah.
So you finished out high school?
I finished out high school. I had an opportunity. I graduated at 17.
Okay.
And then I decided to come out here to California. There was a girl.
I was going to say, was it a girl? It's always a girl.
She was something.
But not the girl.
Well, I thought she was.
Okay.
And so I came out to California to be with her. She was a singer. She actually sang the song for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And then she had her own songs that were out on Capitol Records and that. But I just, my friend was dating her, and he'd gone in the military. And so I asked him, would you care if I dated her? And he said, no. He said, I'm leaving, right, And so I went out to California, and I was out here for quite a while. It was in Van Nuys. And she said, are you going to stay? You know how women will say, where is this going?
Yes.
Okay. So,
yes.
So I got the
I want a breakdown of what is going to happen.
So where it was
You were
going,
probably pretty young to know exactly where it was going.
I think there was a side of me that I understood. So I said, Debbie, I'm gonna go home to St. Louis at that time, get whatever I got left, and I'm coming back out here, and we'll
Will, I can't say it, but will something.
So I go home and
Yeah.
I got my draft notice.
Oh.
So I had already talked to an Air Force recruiter. And so my brother, who just got back from Vietnam in the Army, he said, if you can go in the Air Force, go in the Air Force. And I was like, whatever. I was going to, all of us boys enlisted.
Yeah.
My dad was a World War II vet. No, we were just that way. It's like, we'll go. So my recruiter said, come down here and sign this paperwork. And it was just a few days. I was gone.
Yeah.
So, we were writing back and forth. And I told her, I really want to marry you, but I'm in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And she said, well, when do you get out for leave? And I said, well, I have basic training and then my school, which I was security forces, security police. And then after that, I don't know, they're going to send me somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I got my assignment. We're writing back and forth. And my assignment was to the Philippines. And I knew there's no way I could afford to, right? So I told her, and she said, we need to get married before you go. And I said, Debbie, there's just no way.
Yeah.
We can't. I don't have any. I won't have any money.
Yeah.
I don't have any stripes. I got to make rain. She said, if you don't marry me before you go, I will not write you or talk to you. And I thought, she's just saying that, right? She did it.
Yeah, she meant it.
Yep. And 4 years later, I got back. I'd already gotten married to my wife. And there was a letter waiting for me. Let's get back together. And I'm like, 4 years later.
That ship has sailed.
I was like, I didn't answer the letter, but I was like, oh, that's a little bizarre.
Yeah.
A
little late there.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. And it's just weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the military was really good for me. I met my wife in Japan, and she was in the military as well.
Yeah.
And I had been in the Philippines. And first time I saw a Filipino girl, I went, oh, I'm marrying one of those. Guys, we're all visual.
Yeah,
Right? Oh, long hair. Oh, yeah. I'm married. Well, then I got shipped out in 5 months. I got transferred to Japan. And the only Filipino girls were already married to GIs.
Yeah.
And so I just, I dated some, but really wasn't, right?
Yeah.
And a friend came up and he said, there's a Filipino girl at Pass an ID. And I said, what? At Pass an ID? He said, yeah, she's in the military. I said, she's in the Air Force? They said, yeah. So, man, I jumped in my car.
Send me straight to her.
Yeah. So, man, I pulled up, ran into Pass an ID, and I said, hi, my name's Fish. Can I show you the base?
Stop it.
I just was like, right? She was like, okay.
And she fell for it.
She fell for it. 5 months later, we were married, and that was 52 years ago.
52 years.
Yeah.
5 months. That's a whirlwind.
Oh, it was.
Especially with you both in the service.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the age difference? Are you guys close in age?
I think I'm 8 months older than her.
Okay.
But it was just, I really, her and I both go, what were we thinking? Even today we were just kids.
Yeah.
It's easy to look back and go, what?
Yeah.
And I remember asking her to marry me, and it really wasn't romantic, right? She was laying on the bed. I had a house downtown, and that's another story. But I was sitting there doing something on the floor, and I looked over and I said, "You want to get married?" It was like
there was no need.
It was like
there was no romantic proposal.
It was like, what are you doing this weekend?
It was like, yeah, you want to go out to dinner? What should we do for dinner? Do you want to get married?
Yeah,
I feel like you should have redone this proposal by now, Fish.
We've been married. We renewed our vows at
I
don't remember how many years, 10, I think, or something. Which I recommend to people. You gotta make up for stuff.
Yeah.
Stupid stuff.
For your oopsies the first time.
Oh gosh, it was just crazy. Just
So then how did that work being in the military together, being newly married and being in a different country?
Well, I had been in Japan longer than her,
Yeah.
and I kept extending there. I put in for Vietnam. I really felt like I was supposed to go, and I was trained, and so I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
And I kept getting turned down. It was really weird for odd reasons, not enough rank, not enough time and grade, whatever, right? And then once she showed up, obviously I wasn't going to put in for that anymore.
There's a reason.
But we both, we both had top secret cryptographic clearances. And so they're really a stickler for that, and so we had to file a bunch of paperwork. There was a huge amount of paperwork to marry another U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
They actually made me get a letter from my mom because I was under 21. I had to get a letter of permission from my mom to get married.
To get married.
So anyway, we had that whole stack of paper, and then we had to go up to Sapporo to the consulate because the U.S. consulate has to approve your marriage, and so that you're legally married in the States. So we go in, man, it's this big office. And, his desk is like here. We look like two little kids, which we really were, right?
Yeah.
And so he's got this big stack of paperwork from us both. And we don't know what's going to happen. We're getting married by the U.S. consulate, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, do you guys swear that everything you put in front of me is true? And I said, well, yeah. And she says, uh-huh. He goes, okay, you're married. That was it.
What?
That was it. We were married. And I'm like,
no exchange of rings, no kissing the bride.
No
wonder you had to do a vow renewal.
Yeah. And then we had to get married by Japanese law. So we went to I forget what they call it, the city hall in Sapporo. And we kind of had to do the same thing, went before him, and he disappears. And, we had to sign this book, and he comes back, and he's got this. I still have it. It's a Japanese marriage license. It's in a scroll. So you unfold it. It's all written in Japanese. And so he goes. This is your name. This is her name. This is first witness. This is second witness. 1,000 yen. You married.
Man,
so
they don't mess around.
Yeah, it was like, I'm married
again. You're married now twice.
Yeah. So anyway, then we were legally married by American law and Japanese law, and then I knew a priest, and we're going to do a religious ceremony. so you feel married.
You were really making sure that Patty wasn't going anywhere.
Oh yeah,
we've been married 3 times, Patty. You're never leaving.
That's it. And so we did that. It was on base, and we it was really nice. She had a lot of friends, so did I, and so it was a big wedding, and it was really nice. It was a Catholic wedding, and so at that particular time in my life, I would do things that would give me an altered state of consciousness.
Okay. I was wondering where you were going. I was like, get ready to cut, Kurt, just in case.
So I show up in my suit to get married. And I drove up. I don't even know how I drove. They kept me out all night. The guys were with me. And this guy comes up and he goes, hey, Fish, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know. I think I'm going to a party. I'm all dressed up.
Oh, my goodness.
He's like, dude, you're getting married. And I was like, wow, really?
Cool.
Yeah, really cool. So they helped me in.
Yeah.
And I go in, and it was just surreal. Yeah. I actually have a video of it a friend took. And it was a really beautiful. Patty was just absolutely decked out. She just looked gorgeous, and she had her bridesmaids and everything. And so we're standing there, and one of her bridesmaids was pregnant, and she passed out during the ceremony. You're standing, you see her thump, and you go, somebody want to pick her up? I mean, what do you do? And I'm like trying not to laugh. We're getting married. It's a serious time. And then so it's so quiet. We took communion. I don't know if you've ever been to a Catholic wedding, but they do communion, and it was just super quiet in there. And I was kind of like, man, this is really serious stuff. And so he goes to give the chalice to Patty, and he hits her teeth with the thing, and it goes, bing. I was like,
did you lose it at this point? Because you've now held it in for
as close
another.
as I can hold it. And I was like, this is not happening. It's like, it's a third time, you know? Oh, gosh. Yeah. But, and then, so we were married and we went home and
Yeah.
I said, well, let's go. And she said, where are we going? I said, well, there's a party tonight. Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she stayed with me.
I was going to say, and all this time
Oh
she
my
stayed
gosh.
with you.
Honestly, Cal, there isn't a mistake that I didn't make. The woman is a saint.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I don't know. I just think maybe I didn't know what I was doing, you know? And I mean, I'm 20 years old. I turned 21 shortly after that. We actually, July 19th is the day that we were in Sapporo and had those ceremonies. September 16th is when we actually went to the ceremony. So I had just turned 21.
Wow.
And she was not yet 21.
Yeah. Okay, so fast forward, how did you guys get back over to the States and when?
So it came time to rotate, and I didn't even know it, right? We were working different shifts, and it was just the way it was. And so she came home, and she said, I went down to CBPO today and put in, and I'm going to get orders. I said, you're going to get orders? I said, they didn't have joint spouse then, which is, you go together.
You go together, yeah.
And I said, well, where are you going? She said, well, I'm going. Like,
can I come?
Yeah. So she put in because she's from California. She was raised here. She was born in French Camp, raised really in the city. And she said, well, I put in for McClellan, Mather, and Beale. Or maybe I only remember McClellan and Mather. Mm-hmm. So then her orders come back, McClellan. So I go down and go, hey, my wife's got orders. I need to get orders. And they said, well, Sarge, you can't get orders. And I said, what? So you're too close to getting out. I said, I just got married. I'm not sending my wife by herself, right? So, well, you're going to have to extend in the military.
Re-enlist so you can get orders.
Yeah. And so they gave me an extension of 6 months. Mm. And so I took the 6 months, right? I'll do 6 more months, right? And so we could go home together. Mm. And it was really, this is a funny little side note. We were with the 6921st Security Group. So we moved in with her grandmother till we could find a place. And it was at 6921 Briggs Drive.
Wow.
And then we had to get our own place.
Yeah.
Which was 6921 Lewiston Way.
Stop it.
Yeah. And we didn't plan it. Is that right? It's like, 6921's in my...
I guess this is where we're supposed to be.
It's the number for something, But yeah, we came back to the States and it was very different. Yeah. Because I still was trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And I was in for a short time, and then she re-enlisted. Mm. And I can't remember how much time she did, but she came home one day and she said, Bob, I want to have kids. Mm-hmm. And I was all for that, right? I was like, oh, okay.
You came from a big family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she was an only child, so it was a big deal to me. Yeah. I mean, I'd have had 20 kids, but after 2, she told me the factory was closed, so we weren't having any more. And I was like, wait.
Your first one makes you want to have more. Your second one makes you question if you should stop.
Is this speaking from experience, Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah. So she got pregnant, and then in the military at that time, it wasn't like it is now. So they discharged her, what's called convenience of the Air Force. Mm. And so she got discharged, and I had already gotten out not long before that because at that time Vietnam was winding down, so they were given early outs. So although I extended for 6 months, I got out after 2 months and so many days. They offered me an early out, and I said,
You took it. So then what? So now you're out of the military. Your wife's pregnant.
Yeah. And, yeah, okay, this is not the best part of my life.
That's okay. We all have one of those chapters.
You know, I took these little side jobs here and there. I sold vacuum cleaners. I mean, I did, whatever, right? I just was going to work. And then I got in a rock band, right? Formed this little band. And
when was the first time you played guitar? How old were you?
I think I was probably 15.
So after your dad passed, you picked it up later.
But I didn't stay with it. Mm-hmm. It was like kind of, and then when I got in the military, actually, I was 20 because I had a guitar. It wasn't a very good one. I really wasn't that interested. And then Patty bought me the 12-string I played in the band, and it's actually hanging in my office. And you can tell I played it. It looks like Willie Nelson's guitar, right? And but she bought that for me while I was in Japan, and I really started to play more. And then when I got home back to the States, I think I love music anyway, and I was like, just kind of enamored with, oh my gosh, I can play an instrument.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Not everyone can do that.
Yeah, and then I found out I could sing on key. What a novel idea.
Yeah.
So when we put the band together, I played rhythm guitar and sang, and then the drummer sang with me, and the bass player just stood there with perfect hair.
Well, you got to have one of those on set. That's what Kurt's here for.
He was like, Kurt's here because he's got perfect hair. That's the only reason we have him
That's why he's here, really. Okay, what was your band's name? Do you remember, or is it not appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the bass player was Ron Bodden, and I was called Fish, obviously, and the drummer was Skip. So Fish and Skip made sense.
Yeah.
Right? So we started playing, just Skip and I, Fish and Skip. And everybody calls Fish and Chips, obviously. But so we started playing around and got really well known. Then we picked up the bass player. We very cleverly called it RB, Fish and Skip. Yeah. We really weren't the brightest. Yeah. But we did really good. I mean, people liked it. We did, gigs where we would just kind of put together stuff and play somewhere. And we played little bars and stuff. I really got tired of that, though, playing bars. It just really, people they're not really interested in what you're doing. Yeah. And so, I mean, they're just...
You're just like background noise at that point.
Yeah,
Did you already have the kids by then?
No.
Okay.
No. And so we played, and what I really liked is when we get invited to play a private party, something like that.
Where someone's actually paying attention and into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there used to be a store called Gemco years ago, and they had their big corporate party, and Skip's mom worked at Gemco and got us the gig to play there. Awesome. And that was really good. And that was right when, so what happened was disco came out. And we were a rock band. I mean, we played, and we were playing at that Gemco thing, and there was a group of, I say younger, but, at that time I was 26. And they're throwing ice at us, right? Play disco, play disco. And I stopped and I said, either remove them or we're leaving. Yeah. So they came over and removed them. And I was like, man, disco's crap. I don't want to be good. So we were doing really good. And there used to be a bunch of restaurants called Black Angus, right?
Oh, I remember.
So Black Angus had this tour that if you got signed up, man, you were from Washington to Southern California. Really? And you just did gig after gig.
At their restaurants?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Reuben Kidd was our manager, and he had got a thing to talk to them. So they came, the guy, we met at Black Angus in Citrus Heights, and he... The guy's signing us right then, right? Wow. And there's just three of us. So they pay the same amount whether you're a 7-piece or whatever band. So it was going to be good money for us. And I was excited. This was a gig, right? And the guy, while we're there, he says, okay, so I'm going to sign you guys, but Black Angus is in the process of deciding whether we should switch to disco, where you just have a guy, a DJ.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not going to do that. They would never do that.
Yeah. Why would they do that?
Yeah, nobody's got it. They want a live band. Sure enough,
Disco.
we got dumped. They went to disco. And it was like, what a bummer.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it was time, really, and it wasn't too long after that Pablo was born. And I mean, it changes it for a guy. I don't know about other guys, but the minute I held that little guy, I went, my life's changing.
Yeah.
The band ain't going to work. I need to get a real job, right?
You have someone bigger than you now that you have to take care of.
And so, but it was funny because I would take him to the gigs that we'd play, and the girls they would pass him around.
Baby.
He's a baby, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, okay, which might explain his later life. I mean, I'm sure that, CPS would have nailed that puppy nowadays, right? But back then, like, I'd go to the park because we like to play a lot of Frisbee and just get out in the sun. And, man, we just grab our guitars, go play in the park. People would show up, And so I'd take him everywhere. And then pretty soon it'd be time to leave. It's like, oh, man, I need to go. Hey, who's got my kid? Who's got my son?
They didn't have tracking devices then.
Oh my gosh! And the girls would be going, "You need to bring an extra bottle next time." And there was plenty of diapers, but you need more wipes. Right?
Yeah,
telling me what to put in the diaper bag.
What to restock on your diaper bag? Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so. Anyway, that was kind of when I quit that. It was simultaneous. There was a lot of things that happened to me. Things that weren't particularly. They weren't good. I overdosed on heroin, and I was using drugs quite a bit by then. And that was a very odd experience. I could feel my body shutting down, and I just knew I'm a pedal to the metal guy.
Yeah,
and I just knew this is going to kill me.
Yeah,
right.
You have no dimmer switch.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. No filter either.
No, I know. It's charming sometimes.
So, and kind of simultaneously, I had the band was playing up in the mountains, and I was sitting on the side of a mountain. We were skinny dipping. This is a picture you get.
Kurt, you're never getting this out of your head.
So here's the band, right? We're sitting up, getting high, looking at the valley, because we're up on the side of this mountain, and it's gorgeous. It's pine trees. Just it looks like a carpet. This is beautiful, and right in the middle of it was a little square, like somebody cut a hole in the carpet. And I thought, well, that's our campground, right there, because they cleared it for the campground. And in my mind, I just said, I know who made that. I want to know who made this. And I had the equivalent, I guess, of an epiphany, a supernatural experience. And I was just like, God's real, right? I mean, not that I hadn't always thought that, but this was different.
Yeah, different level.
I turned to the drummer and I said, man, I don't know about you, but from this day forward, I believe in Jesus Christ. And he went, you've been out here too long. I was like, how can it affect me? The guy sitting right next to me and he gets nothing.
Totally different experience. Yeah.
Right? And I was like, so anyway, I knew that was a change. And I began to tell the band, I got to go to work. I can't just do this. Right. I love playing music, but it's not going to, I'm heading down a path that's getting worse. And I can tell you, there were band practices that, I'd show up and these guys were totally unable to play. Yeah. They were just, Yeah. Yeah. And so
you saw the writing on the wall and decided that was not the direction you're going.
Yeah. And I think because I was a few years older than them, but I also think because of having a kid.
Yeah.
At that time, we had Pablo. It was 18 months, I think, between him and Josh. And I just somehow you just know this is a bad road, right? And then, my friends would say, oh, you just got that Jesus thing going on. And I believe that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But, we were at a band practice and we were playing the Rolling Stones song, Sympathy for the Devil. Which is, and I just picked up my guitar, I put it in the case, and I went, dudes, I can't do this anymore, man. I mean, it's going nowhere, And I think that it's a combination of things that work in your life, right? Mm-hmm. But I was like, I need to go home.
Yeah.
Get a real job, right?
Yeah. Time to grow up.
Yeah. And really, that's what happened. I went to work I started doing construction, framing houses, and building fence, and then I had an opportunity to start my own company, and I started a fencing company and worked out on ranches, was a ranch foreman. I had some really great jobs after that, and it was just a whole different life and a whole different atmosphere. I still played guitar, and I still played. As a matter of fact, the church I went to, I had written a song after that experience called "Do You Want to Go to Heaven?" And I was playing at a wedding for some people I knew, and the bishop that did the service was there, and I met him. Well, I ended up going to that church. The gal that cut my hair for the band, she said, "Hey, would you go to church with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, And so I went to church, and that was him. He was there. I don't know how all that worked, right? But then I started playing music in church. So I still was playing guitar, but it was
different. Probably less heroin.
I have to tell you, Kelly, and even recounting these stories with you, sometimes I think I don't know many women that would tolerate who I am. Mm-hmm. Right. And Patty I remember telling her, because when she met me, I had like a chip on my shoulder. I was not a kind man. And I remember telling her, it's like, so you wanted a bad boy. So you get this bad boy, and now you're trying to change him. Right. She said, yeah. And I said, but I remember one time asking her, I said, sweetheart, why did you marry me? Mm-hmm. You knew I was not a nice guy. Right? I was angry and blah, blah, blah. And she said, I knew there was a good man in there. Like women just know stuff like that, right? And I said, well, he was way down in there. It took a while to dig him out.
Just peeling back some layers.
Yeah. But I look back and I think she's always been that way.
Yeah. She saw your potential.
Well, and she didn't want to stifle what I'm doing, and over the years, you learn. You really learn to read each other. Yeah. And it's like if we're riding along in the car or whatever, if she reaches over and does this, I know, stop whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. Whatever she's going to say to you right now, that's important. Mm-hmm. Right? And so over the years, I've learned, how to listen to her. What do you really want? Right? I mean, and it took a while because I just, and that's why, I've done 30 years of marriage counseling with people. I can tell you stories, right? Yeah. It's like, you just gotta, but there is something about that. It's like, are you gonna let them be who they are? Well, yeah, I let her be who she is. Yeah. And I just thought that's how you were supposed to do it. Yeah. Gratefully. Yeah. Because a lot of times couples just trying to design each other. Yeah. And that doesn't work.
That's not how it works. Well, what is your biggest piece of marriage advice? 30 years of counseling and 50 plus years of marriage. What is your biggest piece of marriage advice?
Marry a Filipino girl.
For the rest of us. Just kidding.
No, I think that, obviously when I became a Christian, that began to change me. Right?
Yeah, to the core,
but
I think.
I think if I had to make it as simple as I could for anybody, it's you really need to pay attention to that person you married. Mm-hmm. You really have to get to know them, not just on the surface, not just we're sharing, right? Because you were an individual and then you got married. Mm-hmm. And I think there's this dynamic that happens where it's like, okay, I was Bob, but now I'm married. I got to be a husband. Mm-hmm. And so you begin to do what you think a husband ought to do. And they do what they think a wife ought to do. And somewhere in there, and unfortunately, it was 3 years before we had kids. Mm-hmm. But I know couples, they have kids almost immediately. Yeah. So now you have to figure out, you lose who you are.
Yeah.
And you become a husband or wife, and then you become mom and dad.
Yeah.
And so the dynamic changes so radically and so quickly. And so if you don't backtrack on that and remember who you are, and then remember who they are, and help them not lose themselves either, so that you can continue to enjoy that. Because otherwise, people say, well, we'll just wait till the kids are growing, and then well, good luck with that.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did have one really rough spot, and I remember, I don't remember what I was upset about. This is all I remember. We were in the garage, and I was so mad, and I remember saying, I want a divorce. And the minute the words came out of my mouth, I said, no, I don't. That's not what I want. I want this to work.
Yeah.
And I would tell people, don't just throw that out there.
Yeah.
That's hard to take back, you know? And so I knew it wasn't what I want. I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have to tell you this. So somebody told me, hey, look, you have to ask God if he said, husbands, love your wives. Do you know how to do that? And I was like, well, apparently not. He said, you have to ask him. He said, your wife, not how to love women. You go get a book on that.
Yeah.
You know? But that's your wife. That's separate, right? So I started praying, Lord, how do I love Patty? You know, what really does it matter, right? And so she had been hammering me about fix the dryer, right? So the dryer was broken. And it was like, I don't know if this is a story you can relate to, but I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. So I put up a clothesline. Hang the clothes outside. They smell better, right? You don't think, right?
That is not fixing the dryer, sir.
No, it wasn't. And the garage is 180 degrees in there.
Yeah.
And, behind the dryer is all dusty. I got allergies. And so, and I'm praying, and I swear that God said to me, people I know will think that's crazy, fix the dryer.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, hey, fix the dryer. So I went out there, moved the dryer, took the back off. It was a Sears, right? Got a heating element, right? Took it up there, got one, came back, put it in. I'm sneezing, running, right? I'm bolting it back up. And here she shows up on the doorstep with a cold Coke with ice. And she's like crying. And I realized it's not fix the dryer. It's, Bob, you're so busy. Drop what you're doing for her. And she'll know. She will know that you think she's important. It wasn't about the dryer.
No.
It was about, you get it, of course.
Yeah.
Women
yeah,
get
totally. Yeah. It's not about the dryer. It's about being seen and valued.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, if I'd
it's just a dryer, because to a guy, it's just a dryer.
Yeah. We could have had a better marriage if I'd have fixed that dryer 5 years when she had
right.
It's like, so yeah, it's those kinds of things that I think that, we have to do. Nobody wants a bad marriage. Nobody gets married going, I hope this doesn't work.
Yeah. Nope.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, it's so quickly.
Yeah.
I'm a great advocate of not so much marriage counseling, although I believe that's good.
Yeah.
But taking your time. Don't just jump into it. And I can say that as a guy, 5 months and I'm married.
I was just going to say, who's that?
Yeah.
Kurt's giving us the hook.
Is he?
We're going to have to do a round 2 interview. We didn't even get into all the radio stuff.
Yeah. And I was very careful. I mean, you have to talk about the stuff that was your dumb time.
You have to.
you know?
No.
And I certainly had a bunch of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's more that we don't know.
So Kelly, you want to interview me again to get more dumb stuff or because
Yes.
of the rest?
Yes. All of the above. D.
So you and I have to have an agreement on this.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah, the boys don't get to see this.
I don't know. My boys know pretty much all of the big life lessons I've learned, the ugly ones, the not so pretty ones, as the boys, as they become age appropriate lessons for the boys, they are shared with them. And I think that's important. I think, one, so that they see me as, not just a mom, but as a human who's also made mistakes.
That's huge.
And two, to know the value of being able to make mistakes, but come back from them and forgive yourself and be forgiven by people around you. I think those are lessons they need. So no, they can watch this one.
I felt that way about my boys. I didn't hide from them my drug usage and drinking and, those abuses, but also just really not being kind.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, this cost me because I did this, issues with where, I'd get angry or upset, walk out on situations that I should have just calmed down, had the dialogue, and it'd have been fine. Right.
I can't even imagine you not being kind.
Yeah. I hear that now. I hear that all the time. People tell me that they think I'm very kind and generous and all these things, but because I know who I was, I can attribute who I am to the Lord, right? It's like I can see the difference. And I would love to tell you it's just age. You get older, you get...
I think that works in the opposite way.
I know.
So you get older, you get grumpier.
Yeah, I know some very old, not kind people. And so I don't believe that's it, but lessons learned.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thanks for coming on my show today. It's been really nice to have you.
You're very good at this.
Thanks. You want to take us out with the like, subscribe, and share?
Yeah. So am I on this camera? Always got to ask. All right. So listen, thanks for watching. I hope that there's a little bit of delving into my life, but that, we all have them. I think it'd be really good if you like and subscribe and share this, so that other people can see it. But I would hope that, maybe I say this all the time, maybe somebody who their story, because we all have one, could actually be a benefit.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Kelly, because she's got they're both teenagers, right? Two teenage boys. And I remember during the time that my boys were teenagers, there were things I had to tell them about my life that I wasn't exactly thrilled with, but it made a difference. And so as much as I don't want this getting out ever, this is not, if you got teenagers, show them this, right? But, it does tell the other side of the story. So anyway, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And we will be back. This will break on Saturday. And then we'll be back. But again, thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Kelly loves the comments, especially the ones about her.
Stop it.
Thank you so much.